Welcome back to another weekly recap on NCAA 14 and College Football Revamped. This week, it's week 6, with quite a few big games around the country, with plenty of teams trying to keep some perfect seasons alive and keeping their hopes of college football playoff aspirations. First, we head to Mississippi State, where they are hosting LSU. Mississippi State comes into the game undefeated, and LSU only has one loss on the season. The winner of this game will end up being in the driver's seat for their division in the SEC, so let's see how it goes. First, we come to the second quarter, where LSU is down 7, but is able to get a nice rush from 2 yards out from John Emery Jr. to tie this game up at 7. Then a little bit later on in the second quarter, Will Rogers and company looking to make another stand, but Mason Smith was wrecking house the entire game and splitting defenders and was purely a problem for Mississippi State, and that led to a Mississippi State field goal. A little bit later on, right before halftime, LSU up 14-10, looking for a big play. It looks like they got it, and they're going to go up 21-10 going into halftime. But wait, was he in bounds when he caught that? The officials were going to go take a look at this one now, and as you can see on this replay, it doesn't look like that foot was in bounds. Was he crossing the plane? There was a lot of different angles, and eventually there was too much to overcome there where they said that he was out of bounds and it would be called back, and now LSU would have to do it over, and that would eventually lead to them kicking a field goal to up 17-10. Now with 20 seconds left in the half, LSU looking for more, trying to get into field goal range. Jaden Daniels finds his man over the middle, able to get 16 more yards to Malik Neighbors, and that would set up another field goal to go up 20-10 at the half. It's a good game from Starkville, where Mississippi State is holding their own, but LSU is making a lot of plays, getting into the red zone and putting themselves in positions to score. Mississippi State has had a lot of drives, like I mentioned, wrecked by Mason Smith, so they're going to need to convert there if they want to be able to hang in there with LSU. We pick up in the second half, where LSU, again, deep in the red zone, able to give the ball to Noah Kane from 3 yards out, and they go up 27-10. Big drive for Mississippi State about halfway through the third quarter. Will Rogers finds his man on a beautiful ball there for 21 yards to Justin Robinson, and that puts them at a first and goal, essentially. They're going to run the ball from about 6 yards out. That run to Simeon Price cuts the lead to 27-17 with about 4 minutes to go in the third quarter. And a few minutes later in the game, Mississippi State finds themselves deep in the red zone again. This time it's 1st and 10 from about the 12, 13-yard line. Can Will Rogers make a play here? Finds his man slanting over the middle, and that's Jordan Mosley from 13 yards out. And that cuts the lead to 27-24. Pressure shifting to LSU now as the home crowd in Starkville is believing that they can pull off an upset, even though they are the undefeated team coming into this game. But at the end of the third quarter and going into the beginning of the fourth, LSU starts to drive down the field. And shocker, we find LSU deep into Mississippi State territory, this time on 2nd and goal from about the 2-yard line. Are they going to give it the handoff? Nope. Fakes the handoff. Jaden Daniels on the read option, 3 yards out, gives them the 34-24 score. But Mississippi State would not be done. They have a 2-back look, and Will Rogers, another beautiful pass. Jordan Mosley again, 34-31. Mississippi State will not go away, and the Bulldog faithful are proving that they belong on this big stage this year. 3rd and 2 for LSU, this time from about the 6-yard line. Jaden Daniels needs a big play, but does not throw it with enough zip that Chris Hilton felt the need to come back to the ball on that play and forces a 4th down and a field goal. Then LSU needs 1 first down to put this away, and that's exactly what John Emery does, and that gives LSU the 37-31 victory, and a great game from Jaden Daniels. He was a do-it-all part of the offense, had 13 rushes on his own, but I think this game not only solidified LSU as a contender, but Mississippi State as well. I think we'll be hearing more from them later on in the season. Next game, a ranked clash of Alabama and North Carolina at Kenan Memorial Stadium. The only time we've seen Alabama this season was against us, and then we saw them beat Texas A&M pretty handily in a game a little bit earlier on in the season. So let's see how they fare against Drake May as he's continuing his rampage through the SEC. 3rd and goal for North Carolina pretty early on in the first quarter. Drake May looking, scanning, beautiful ball to the corner of the end zone, finds his man Tez Walker from 5 yards out, and they're up 7-0 early. Then 3rd and goal for UNC, up 13-7. Can they punch it in from here? and that's the jet sweep handoff to Nate McCullum. A missed extra point keeps us at a 19-7 game, but North Carolina just kept on coming in the second quarter. This time it's a read option look to Drake May, a staple of their offense, and they go up 26-7, putting Alabama on notice. A little bit later on in the third quarter, Alabama trying to come back. Jaden Milroe throws a beautiful ball towards the corner of the end zone, but it is dropped by his tight end, and that was just the type of day it was for Alabama. They could not get a lot going. This time they're deep in the red zone, middle of the third quarter. They really need it here, but instead it's an interception for UNC, and that was about all that you would need to see. UNC dominated this one from start to finish, especially behind the play of Drake May. 4 total touchdowns. Not very efficient on the ground, but he was mainly used as a red zone weapon, and it clearly worked for them as UNC, having a really nice SEC season, and Alabama still looking for some answers, as their team is clearly not coming to form at this point in the season. Next up, we have the matchup that I was most excited for this week. USC and Washington. USC has 1 loss on the season, but it's coming off a win over Oregon. And now Washington, undefeated number 3 in the country, is bringing into this matchup one of the most prolific offenses that is number 1 in scoring, number 1 in yards, top 10 in both passing and rushing. Would this USC defense be able to hang in there with Washington? We pick up with USC down 7 early in the second quarter, fakes the handoff, and Caleb Williams finds his way into the end zone from 2 yards out, and USC is able to tie this one up at 14 early on. Would Washington be able to respond? Well, they were incredibly aggressive on 4th down the entire day. They are deep in this territory, not wanting to go for the field goal, and they're able to use their big old back, Daniel Nada, who is able to find the crease in 9 yards on that 4th and 2 to get them to a 1st and goal now. Now it's 2nd and goal for Washington, and they're going to give the handoff to Dylan Johnson from 2 yards out, and that puts Washington up 21-14. Now, before the half is over, you got 14 seconds. USC trying to muster a touchdown or at least a field goal to stay within striking distance. Caleb Williams escapes some pressure, and they're able to use their last timeout, and that brings up 8 seconds left, and they're still going to go for it here. A tackle inbounds will probably send us to halftime, but instead, he finds his man, and they tie this up at 21 going into the half. Washington tacks on a field goal, and USC now looking for the lead, and they got it. Finds his man, Jude Wolfe, from 3 yards out, and USC is up 28-24, heading into the 4th. USC is the team now, being very aggressive, going for it on 4th and 2 when they could go up 31-24. Instead, they use some kind of option look, and that goes nowhere as Austin Jones loses 2 yards, and they lose possession, leading to Washington marching down the field behind Michael Penix. Finds his man wide open, Devin Culp, the tight end, able to get the 1st down yardage and bring up 1st and goal down by 4. 2nd and goal for Washington now. This is where they've been incredibly successful. Daniel Nada punching into the end zone. They go up 31-28 now with 4.5 minutes to go in this game. After trading touchdowns, Washington now has a chance to put this away. 3rd down on 3rd and 10. They just run the ball to make USC use their last timeout, but they are not going to punt it back to USC with 30 seconds to go with how the offense has been performing. Washington is going to try and get the conversion and win this game on their own. 4th and 7. Penix is looking, fires to the sideline, and finds his man, Jalen McMillan, for 14 yards. That seals the game, and Washington, at home, gets their signature victory of the season behind a very balanced offense. Washington has put the country on notice that they are not just a very flimsy number 3 team in the country. They are a team that can come out and make you work for it, and that's what they did today against USC. Now, the final game that we're going to highlight in today's action is Kansas State visiting Oklahoma State at Boone Pickens Stadium. Kansas State comes into this game undefeated, looking to keep that season alive. Oklahoma State has had more of a struggle in looking for that signature win on the season for them. Kansas State is up 7-6 in this one near the end of the first half on a 2nd and goal. Can Kansas State punch it in? We're going to see the big old Will Howard work his way into the end zone untouched to go 14-6. But early on in the second half, Alan Bowman and Oklahoma State able to punch their way into the end zone as everybody loves their read options near the goal line, and they're hard to defend, so you can't blame them. Oklahoma State would try for 2 and not able to get it, but they would get the ball back down 14-12 on a 3rd and 8 in the back of the end zone. Great toe-tapping catch to put Oklahoma State up 20-14. Kansas State would come down and score to go up 21-20, and now with 5 minutes to go, Kansas State looking to extend that lead, finds a man with a nice slant pattern over the middle, puts themselves up 28-20. Oklahoma State would now drive down, getting deep into the red zone. It's 3rd and goal. Not much time left. This is a do-or-die play for them. Still have a 4th down if they need it. They don't. They find their man, Brennan Presley, in the end zone. Now it's 2-point conversion time to try and tie this one up with about 40 seconds to go and probably headed to overtime. 3 men out to his right. Alan Bowman looks. Here's the pressure from the blind side. Finds the ground, and Kansas State will escape this one with a 28-26 victory. Incredibly hard fought, but you have to give Kansas State some credit. That was kind of a heart of a champion type of game with a team that has been in these kind of battles before, and Oklahoma State could just not convert on one more play, but they looked impressive enough and are clearly going to be a scrappy team in the Big 12 that you can't count out. Let's take a look at the scores from across the country now. NC State beat Duke by 30. We saw North Carolina stick it to Alabama by 30. Miami beats Georgia Tech 27-14. Miami moves to 3-2 overall and 1-3 in SEC play and gets their first SEC win. Georgia Tech still looking for their first SEC win at this point. Ole Miss really stuck it to Auburn 51-7, and now Auburn is 0-4 in conference and 0-5 overall. Wake Forest beats Clemson, which is now not a conference matchup, but still Clemson takes their 3rd loss of the season. Tennessee beats an FCS opponent 51-10, just taking care of business. Kentucky beats South Carolina 31-28, as Kentucky has had a really nice start to the season, and we'll see them next week against Ohio State in a Big Ten matchup. And then we saw LSU beat Mississippi State earlier in the episode. Then, when we move to the Big Ten, Maryland beats Louisville, so Louisville, not a conference loss, but still another loss for them. Penn State beats Illinois. Penn State continues their perfect season with a 38-7 win. Ohio State stays perfect. They're 6-0 after a 38-17 victory. And Notre Dame stays perfect, a perfect 4-0 in conference as well after beating Pittsburgh. Michigan State is perfect after beating Purdue. Minnesota beats Iowa 37-7. We saw the Kentucky and South Carolina score earlier, and then Michigan beats West Virginia for their first Big Ten victory of the season, trying to get their season back on track after a little bit of a rocky start for them. Then we move to the Big 12, where Syracuse beats Tulane, and Tulane 2-2 to start their season. Hasn't really gotten to the meat of conference play yet, so we'll see how the new Big 12 team in Tulane fares. Missouri beats Iowa State, and Iowa State is now 0-3 in conference and looking for a struggle of the season. TCU beats an FCS opponent 45-7, continuing their strong start. Oklahoma rebounds from a loss to Nebraska with a 38-17 victory. A&M beats Kansas in overtime 48-45, so A&M gets a big win. Arkansas beats Baylor 31-10, and Arkansas is now 4-2 overall and 4-2 in conference, so that's a pretty nice start to the season to put them in a good spot to be contending for their division title. SMU beats Rutgers 27-7, and then we saw Kansas State beat Oklahoma State. Utah continues their strong start with a 55-20 win over at UCLA. BYU beats Utah State 24-20. Then a game that I'm pretty excited for, San Diego State winning 14-13. They're off to a 4-1 start overall and 2-1 in conference play, so looks like San Diego State is acquitting themselves well. Washington beat USC. Then we see Fresno State lose to Wyoming, and Fresno State is a team I'm worried about. They have looked a little lost so far. Oregon, after losing to USC last week, beats Colorado 37-17, as Colorado hitting a little bit of a rough patch. Boise State beats Southern Miss 34-3. UTEP beats Colorado State, and UTEP is now 4-0 and 2-0 in conference for themselves, so that might be one of those other non-power teams we'll have to check more in on. And then UNLV beats Arizona State 34-17, and they are now 2-2 in conference. And then Washington State beats Appalachian State 31-27. FSU is on bye next week, so next video is going to be another recap video where we are going to recap Week 7, and then Week 8 we will get to FSU getting back into conference play, where we are going to be going to Clemson to face them as SEC rivals for the first time, so that'll be an exciting one to get back into the swing of things, where we will have 7 straight weeks of games against SEC opponents, and we're hitting the fun part of the schedule, and I hope you guys are enjoying the ride. I know I am. And as always, Go Noles!